Let's dive into one of the most incredible stories in all of human history, the scientific revolution. And look, this isn't just about a few dusty discoveries in a textbook. This is the story of how a handful of incredibly brave thinkers didn't just change the world, they completely shattered and then rebuilt our entire idea of reality itself.
So I want you to think about this for a second. Really, what does it actually take to convince every single person on the planet that everything they know, everything their parents and their grandparents believed for centuries is just plain wrong? It sounds impossible, right? Well, that is exactly the story we're talking about today.
To really get how massive this change was, we have to travel back in time. We need to understand the world this revolution replaced, a world where truth wasn't something you discovered for yourself. Nope, it was something handed down from on high, through unwavering faith and absolute authority. What you're seeing here are two totally different realities. On one side, you've got the medieval worldview. Here, truth came from two sources: ancient philosophers like Aristotle and the Bible. And in this universe, the Earth was the stable, unmoving center of everything. This wasn't just astronomy, you have to understand. It was theology. It put humanity right at the center of God's plan. But on the other side, a new idea was starting to sprout, that truth isn't given to you, it's something you have to find, out in the real world using observation, evidence, and math.
So what lit the fuse for such a massive change? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was more like a perfect storm. The Renaissance got people curious about the physical world again. The brand new printing press spread ideas like wildfire. The Age of Exploration was discovering entire new continents and new stars that weren't in any of the old books. And the Reformation showed everyone that, hey, maybe questioning the highest authority wasn't so impossible after all. The stage was set.
And right in the middle of all this chaos and change, one man came along and pushed over the first crucial domino. His idea was pretty simple, but it was so powerful it would eventually bring that entire old world crashing down.
And here it is, the heliocentric theory. In 1543, an astronomer named Nicolaus Copernicus dropped an absolute bombshell. He suggested that the Earth was not the center of the universe, the sun was. Now, to you and me, that's just Science 101. But back then, this was a direct assault on 1,000 years of doctrine from the most powerful institutions on Earth.
And let's be crystal clear about this. This was not some friendly academic debate. This was a dangerous idea. Because if the authorities were wrong about the very layout of the heavens, well, what else could they be wrong about? It completely undermined humanity's special place in the universe and directly challenged the Church's power. This was intellectual dynamite.
So, Copernicus lit the match, but he was just the beginning. His idea kicked off this incredible chain reaction across Europe. Other brilliant minds grabbed that torch and started running, all of them hunting for the one thing they needed to prove it: cold, hard evidence.
You know, this is a perfect example of how science actually works. It's not one lone genius, it's a team effort played across generations. So first, Copernicus comes up with a theory. Then, a guy named Tycho Brahe spends his entire life meticulously mapping the stars, creating the most accurate data the world had ever seen. After him, Johannes Kepler takes all that data and discovers the mathematical laws behind it, proving planets move in ellipses, not perfect circles. And finally, Galileo Galilei steps up with the smoking gun: visual proof.
With his new and improved telescope, Galileo saw things no human being had ever laid eyes on. He saw tiny moons orbiting Jupiter, which proved that not everything in the universe circled the Earth. He saw Venus going through phases, just like our moon, something that was only possible if it circled the sun. He even saw sunspots and mountains on the moon, which shattered the whole idea that the heavens were some kind of perfect, unchanging realm. Every single observation was another nail in the coffin of that old worldview.
But this kind of truth came with a heavy price. The powers that be just couldn't ignore the challenge anymore. In 1633, Galileo was dragged to trial by the Inquisition. He was found vehemently suspect of heresy and forced to publicly recant his findings. It was this huge, dramatic showdown between the new science and the old authority.
You see, this whole revolution wasn't just about changing what we knew. Even more important was that it completely changed how we knew things. A whole new rulebook for finding the truth was being written from scratch. Two guys really laid the groundwork here. Over in England, you had Francis Bacon. He was all about inductive reasoning. Basically, he said, forget the old books. Start with what you can see, touch, and measure. Run experiments, collect data, and then build your theories from the ground up. Meanwhile, over in France, René Descartes argued for the opposite approach, deductive reasoning.
He said you should start with pure, undeniable logic and build your understanding of the world from there.
And Descartes' whole philosophy is captured in that super famous quote, "I think, therefore I am." His goal was to doubt absolutely everything until he found one single truth he couldn't possibly doubt. And for him, that was the fact that he was thinking. So when you combine Bacon's evidence-first approach with Descartes' logic-first approach, you get the powerful engine we now call the scientific method.
Okay, so we've got a new model of the solar system, we've got new data, and we've got a whole new way of thinking. But all the pieces are still scattered on the floor. The revolution needed one final absolute genius to come along and put it all together. And that genius was Isaac Newton.
The climax of our story really comes down to a single year, 1687.
This is the year Newton publishes his masterpiece, the Principia Mathematica, and in it, he does something that was simply unimaginable at the time. He proved that the exact same force that makes an apple fall from a tree is what keeps the moon locked in orbit around the Earth. For the first time in history, heaven and Earth played by the same set of rules.
He called it universal gravitation, and this right here was the missing piece of the puzzle. It was the physical mechanism, the why, that explained how the planets moved in the exact way Kepler had described. Newton revealed a universe that wasn't just being pushed around by mysterious forces, but one that operated like a giant, magnificent, and predictable clock, all governed by the language of mathematics.
Newton's work was really the grand finale of the scientific revolution, but the story doesn't stop there, not even close. Its impact continues to echo down through the centuries, literally shaping the world that you and I live in today.
The immediate effect was earth-shattering. You see this massive tectonic shift in society, away from just accepting things on faith and tradition and toward demanding evidence and using reason. Skepticism wasn't a sin anymore, it was becoming a virtue. And the absolute, unquestionable authority of the old institutions was broken for good.
And you can draw a straight line from this revolution to basically everything that followed. This new way of thinking, using reason to figure out the natural world, is what inspired the thinkers of the Enlightenment to do the same thing for government and human rights. That, in turn, paved the way for the Industrial Revolution's technological explosion, which built the modern age. It all started right here.
But you know, maybe the single greatest gift from all of this was the very idea of progress. Before this, people saw knowledge as something ancient and fixed, something you had to preserve. But after the revolution, knowledge became something you build, something that grows, evolves, and gets better every single time we test an idea or make a new discovery. Which brings us all the way back to that first question. If a worldview that stood solid for over 1,000 years could be completely overturned, it leaves us with one last really fascinating thought. What are the unquestionable truths that we all believe in today? What fundamental ideas about our world, or even ourselves, might just be waiting for the next great revolution in human thought to come along and knock them right over?